What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic Podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Today, we welcome along a very special musical guest, Miss Candida Caldicot. Did I say that correctly?
You did perfect. Well done.
Wonderful. Yeah, I had to say that time because I've only just realized how to say it. So Candida has been in part of many, many wonderful, wonderful things. Some of you will know her from the Lehman Trilogy as the live pianist that was there with Simon Russell Beale, Ben Miles, and Adam Godley every night. But that's just a small string of her bow. And let's just take a moment to introduce her. Fresh from the Lehman Trilogy in San Francisco, she is a musical director, composer, and arranger. As a composer, she has been a part of The Little Prince at the Taunton Brewhouse, The Tempest, The Hostage at the Southwark Playhouse, Buckets at the Orange Tree Theatre, and a number of credits at the Iris Theatre, Hansel and Gretel, Richard III, and Romeo and Juliet, just to name a few. As an MD, or musical director, she's been a part of Woyzech at the Old Vic with John Bodega, King Lear at the Duke of York's alongside a certain Ian McKellen, To Kill a Mockingbird at the Gielgud with Matthew Modine and Rafe Spall, and A Strange Loop, West End and Barbican, which gathered 11 Tony nominations as well as an Olivier nomination, and of course the Lehman Trilogy. And if any of you wants to hear her work on demand, the cast recordings of the Lehman Trilogy, The Little Prince, and The Battle of the Boat at the Rose Theatre in Kingston is available on demand right now. But that's just a small sample of Candida, who joins me very graciously during her lunch hour. Candida, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to be here.
No, thank you. Thank you for your time. I know we've got to sort of race through this, but actually not race through it, but I know you've got to shoot back to rehearsals in a bit, so we'll jump straight in. So the starter question, where did it all come from, the love of music?
Um, I started the piano when I was very young. I wanted to learn to play. Um, my mother did a trade in secondhand pianos from my living room.
Hmm.
She used to receive them from a dealer, and we kind of stored them back to back in our living room, and she would sell them as if she was an individual. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure about the mechanics of it, but we had all these pianos stuck, crushed into our little living room, and I was desperate to learn to play. And in the 80s, they were very into groups of children learning things. And I joined this group. We used to kind of line up in a little crocodile behind the piano and
Hmm.
take it in turns to play kind of 3 or 4 notes. And it was wonderful. And it was just the best days, the best times. And I was obsessive. If only I was that obsessive now, I'd be continuing to improve at the rate that I did when I was 4.
Yeah.
But I just loved it. I used to get up before school, do my little bits of playing, and yeah. And then as I grew up, I think that if you have something that you love, like music, you find other people who love that thing too, and it's a wonderful social time that you can spend making music with other people, and you make friends and you grow up. And it was just kind of such a big part of my life.
Yeah.
It continues to be, because
Right.
people who love music are often great people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I admire about pianists, because I remember going to the National Youth Music Theatre for an audition many moons ago now, and you literally have your sheet music, and to me, obviously to you, it's you know how to decode it, but to me it's just like notes and squiggles on a page. But you give it to the pianist, and they can just go okay, and they just know how to play it. And I'm sure you have that talent as well. I mean, how do you learn sheet music in a way? Because it's like Morse code to someone like me.
I mean, I always think of it like another language.
Yeah.
But I feel the same when I hear people speaking French or German or Spanish. I'm like, how do you understand what all those words mean? And music notation is another language. It's just when I see it, it says something to my brain that represents chords and notes, and I'm able to kind of make sense of it in the same way as somebody speaking another language can make sense of that on a page.
Mm.
So I think it's kind of the same thing. And it just takes time and practice, right? And then
Yeah.
when you get good at it, it becomes part of you and just an instinctive kind of thing. And then it's a relief, because learning it's awful.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
No, honestly, I've got so many questions about that, but I know time is going to not allow me to ask them all. So let's jump straight in then. So you were part of possibly one of the most spectacular shows that I know I've ever seen. The Lehman Trilogy, of course, directed by the fantastic Sam Mendes, with those guys, Simon, Adam, and Ben. The story of the Lehman brothers who arrive. Henry Lehman arrives off Ellis Island and starts his business, Lehman Brothers Incorporated. And your job was, well, I suppose first of all, it was all played on a live piano, the whole 3-hour epic. And so I can imagine, was it Ben Powell who you worked with at the National, wasn't it?
Nick.
Oh, Nick Powell. Sorry, wrong
Oh,
one. Wrong one. Oh, sorry, Nick.
Lovely,
Sorry.
wonderful Nick.
Yeah, sorry,
Lovely.
Nick. Love your work, mate. So Nick said in one of the kind of extra documentaries about this is that Sam turned around on the first day and said, "Do you know what? I think we should do all this in a live piano." It's like, what, 163 years on a live piano? It was a bit scary. How was your reaction to it?
Well, I wasn't involved at that point because it wasn't going to be live music, but I happened to be working with Nick at Regent's Park Open Air Theatre. We were doing Peter Pan together, and I was playing his and doing his score for that. And he'd been talking about this show that he was going to work on with Sam, and how great it was, and how he was really excited about the script. And we'd had a conversation about kind of musical influences that he was going to have. And then I got this phone call from him, kind of going, "Help! He wants to do it on a live piano. Can you come into rehearsals next week?" And I was like, I mean, yeah, yes, as long as you're okay for me to miss the time for matinees. And he was like, yes, I'd love to have a friend come in. And before I knew it, we were in rehearsals with this piano, new ideas, building it, and the wonderful, glorious. I mean, it's such a special show for me, and the whole process was such a real honor to be part of, because it was such a really intimate room. It was, only a few of us in the room, and the script was being worked on all the time. The 3 actors had so much to give. Sam had so many ideas, and Zoe, and we were kind of making the music alongside. And each time they kind of do a scene, and Nick would do a little bit of improvisation, and Sam would kind of respond about whether the vibe was right, whether it felt like the moment or not. And then I would notate that down and give it a go myself, and we'd kind of work out how that kind of slotted in with the text and everything that was going on the stage. And it was kind of a really organic process that kind of came out of the text and out of Nick's improvisation in the room. And in a way, that kind of made the whole process even more glorious for performances, because I knew where all those ideas had come from, and I'd been there as they were being made. And it wasn't just a score that I was receiving. It was kind of something that I'd watched be created and kind of been a part of each stage of. So yeah, it's a really special.
It really was. I mean, it's just, I can't really put into words just how epic and how just spectacular that show is. Not only just from an acting perspective, but also like musically, you created this beautiful score which just emanated throughout the theatre. And unfortunately, I didn't see it in the theatre. Unfortunately, I saw it via broadcast. But nevertheless, you could still feel like, probably even better in the cinema, really, because you've got the sound and everything that comes through. And it was just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful show. And I have to say very quickly, I just want to ask you about the rehearsal process in just a second. But one of my favorite moments was when I think Simon is playing one of the younger women in the show who improvises playing the piano on one of those on the boxes, and you jump from Schubert to Mozart to Beethoven to Johann Sebastian Bach, amongst many others, in a matter of like 2 minutes or something like that. It was mental. What was that bit like?
Yeah, it was super fun. So I brought into rehearsal this book of classic favorites that I had when I was about 8 years old. And I've done some of the pieces in with my piano teacher. It still had all the markings from me being like 8 that said like, the chords that I couldn't quite reach, where they'd kind of edited the chords so I could reach them. And I brought in this very battered kind of classical favorite score.
Yeah.
And me and Sam and Nick and Simon kind of stood around the piano, and I played bits of things and they went, oh, that one, let's use that one. So I'd kind of pop a bit of that one in, and then I'd try a bit of something else, and I'd be like, how about that one? And they'd be like, yeah, let's shove that in. So it was kind of a really funny rehearsal, but also lovely. And there, when we've had new pianists, because obviously the show has kind of grown and the cast has changed, and we've had new pianists come and play it, and they always kind of laugh because still in the score are these kind of photocopied pages from this old classical favorites book that I had with all my like childish writing on. And that's still part of the Lehman pianist score, is this kind of this old photocopy from this old book. But yes, and Simon is very passionate about music. He really cares about music, and he's very knowledgeable about music, and he's a great pianist, and he was really involved in that section about which pieces of music he felt would be right.
Yeah, because when I saw him, because if anyone who hasn't seen it, Simon seems to have a very, very good knowledge of where to put his hands, of like which keys he's playing. And to be honest, my thought was I thought he came up to you in a rehearsal, went, sorry, Candida, can I just record you like with this bit here, and I'll just do my best on the night. But actually, you say he actually plays the piano.
No, he plays the piano. All the other actors since he played Henry have taken a video, but Simon is an excellent pianist, so he. Wow. I wouldn't be surprised if he could play all those pieces and had played all the pieces.
Wow. Well, there you go. Big shout out to Simon Russell Beale. So tell me about the rehearsal process, because, you said that things were chopping and changing. And of course, you've got this huge story. I think it's 163 years of history condensed down in just 3 hours. And you've got 3 actors and 1 piano to do it. What was the rehearsal process like? You mentioned that things were chopping and changing a lot. What was it like?
Yeah, it was great. The script would change every day. The music would change every day. And we were all just kind of responding to things as they were put together and finding the clearest story that we wanted to tell and the clearest moments. And really trying to kind of really narrow, even though it's still over 3 hours long, try and narrow down the information that we felt was really important for that story. And that, I mean, there's a glory in things changing, and it was really fun from that perspective. And I remember that the things were changing all the way through the preview period, and there's a very special memory that I think me and Simon and Ben and Adam really shared, was just before the first preview. We kind of all got together backstage and just looked at each other, and there was kind of fear in all our eyes as we were like, we're not sure what's going to happen, but we're going to go out there, we're going to do this. And yes, that's a lovely memory of Lehman for me, and I know it's for the others as well. That first preview, total fear that we weren't quite sure what we were going to do, but it was going to happen.
And it worked. It clearly worked.
And it was a special moment when we played that first preview, and the entire audience stood up, and we were like, yeah, it really is as lovely and as special for others as it is to us.
I get this image now of the 4 of you just standing in the wings, just doing this. Good luck.
That was pretty much what it was.
You carried it beautifully, and it's just amazing what you did. You mentioned about how the piano, because it's this separate entity, because you were downstage left, I think, on there for the show, because you have the stalls there, then you have the stage, and you were like nestled in the corner just there. You mentioned how the music and the piano, in a way, and yourself becomes a 4th character, because you had 3 characters on stage, and then you had the 4th one in the corner, which I think you said in an interview, said how it doesn't share the same opinion as the 3 leads. it becomes like its own, it has its own opinion, its own force, you know, this own way of explaining what's going on. Yeah, so how do you feel like it was a fourth character?
I think for exactly that reason, that it doesn't just comment on the action, it propels the action forward, and it carries emotional weight that the characters sometimes don't even realize is contained in the words that they're saying.
Yeah.
That it might remind the brothers of where they've come from. It might look forward to the future, and predict what's going to happen to
Yes.
them next. That it kind of has its own journey and its own process, that is very complete in terms of the very first note it plays to the very final note it plays. That it's kind of a complete journey that it goes through by itself. So I would argue that for that reason, the piano is like a fourth character.
Yeah.
And I think we always felt that. I think we always felt like it was kind of very much part of what was going on. And sometimes the way that the score is structured, sometimes the actors would be waiting for a piano comment to happen before they continued, and sometimes I would be waiting for them to comment on something before I would then continue. It's very much a kind of dance, a give and take between all four of us.
Yeah. Would you say that a big word that kind of stuck out was the interaction between not only just well, all four of you really, because would how much of an extent would you say like the piano was like the conductor of the piece, and how much were the actors the conductor in a way, or was there a healthy balance between the two?
I mean, I hope there's a healthy balance,
Oh, there
because
very much is. Yeah. Yeah, very much is.
I think that there was an interesting moment as we started to put new actors and new pianists into the different roles, where there was a process of realizing what the function of the piano was. For example, if a new pianist came in and played it slightly under tempo in a rehearsal,
Mm.
we realized that the scene no longer had the drive. It no longer propelled the action forward, or if it was too fast, or moved between sections too quickly, that it no longer allowed the kind of words, the space that they needed. So
Mm.
I think that we kind of learned kind of the importance of that in terms of both the kind of speed and the we call it kind of the engine of the piece, because it kind of rolls on under a lot of the action. It kind of keeps things moving. It can never be on the back foot. It can never sit back and just accompany. It
Mm.
always has to comment and move things forward.
Mm. Yeah. I think sorry, Nick mentioned that as well. How the how it moves it forward, particularly as the play goes along. The beginnings they've got nothing. They're building something from scratch, and then when they get into Wall Street and then they're making all this money, then it goes further and further and further and further and further. Particularly when they get the investment from the trains as well, and then there's a brilliant. Sorry, slight spoiler. There's a big because there's all these boxes like cardboard boxes on stage, and at one point I think it was Adam who built this tower, and it was just showing everything just rocking from side to side. You got the visuals, you got you on the piano just going mad, and everything just sort of, and how it almost, I think Nick described it as like a monster that's pushing them on in a way, so
Yeah.
particularly as the piece went on. So yeah, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the way that the music changes, as the brothers and the family get kind of sucked into this world and this treadmill that they can't get off, or that they don't
Yeah.
know that they need to get off. The piano also kind of becomes more and more out of control, and we start to use effects on the piano that kind of twist the sound of the piano, so it no longer becomes this kind of pure thing that has a kind of innocence about it. It becomes something that is kind of affected by outside influence.
Mm.
And Nick was very clever in the effects that he used. so that the kind of sometimes you hear the whoa 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 of the notes as they fade, or you hear a kind of bedrock of kind of zzz coming up underneath something that's being played, and it kind of all works together to kind of give a kind of frenzied effect of kind of music, and with the video and the lights, it's kind of quite disorientating sometimes. And
but nicely disorientating in terms of the story. And you mentioned also about how the music sort of not only just is almost like a commentary on what's actually happening, but because there was a piece called Raisins and Almonds, wasn't it? That there was a callback to their roots, and it was this beautiful, because I think Nick talked about it was based on an old lullaby or something.
Yeah.
And it's this beautiful piece that just really, I mean that was a brilliant find for you guys, because it really, really encompassed and had this musical quality of someone going back home or referring back to their roots in Rimpa, Bavaria in a way. What was it like when you sort of discovered that piece for the first time?
When Nick, the lyrics are also, I don't want to quote them wrong, but there's a sense in the lyrics about going out and finding your future, I think. Maybe don't quote me on that. I wish I had them to hand, but it's very
along those lines.
Along those lines, and you will find and it's really beautiful, and it felt really right in the piece, and it's actually been a really lovely thing to have in the show, because not irregularly. So we get audience members, often older audience members, coming up to me after the show and saying that was a song that their grandmother sang to them, or that their parent had sung to them, and it's a special thing for them, and that they've really enjoyed the show, and that having that melody really reminds them of their history, and that's kind of, an important, it often is associated with memory for audience members as well, and that has been a lovely find and a lovely extra little thing for us as we play it.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that, because now that you think about it, you were right next to the audience in some ways. They could literally just walk up to you, tap you on the shoulder, and go, "Oh, what piece are you playing?" And you'd be like, "No, go away." But you must have had some amazing reactions at the end because of the score and everything. What was what other reactions did you get from
people? Were generally very kind and very, I think, complimentary about the piece, and really enjoyed having the piano right there, and enjoyed feeling like they were part of it, because often you could almost touch an audience member, you'd be like, "Oh, hello." But it was and it was lovely it's lovely for us to feel like we're right in the audience, and receiving it in that way as well.
Did Sam ever sort of explain why he wanted it on a live piano? What was his reasons behind that?
I'm sure he did, but I can't remember.
Okay,
or perhaps he didn't tell me. Sorry.
That's fine. We'll save that for next time. But you've been with this play for a long time, not only because it started at the National, then it went to the West End, and then you took it to Broadway as well.
That's right. And we went to the Armory in New York in between the National and the West End the first time. Yes, and then to Broadway.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've asked this question on a couple of episodes, like the differences between, if any, like British audiences and American audiences in a way, because I find American audiences get a lot more involved in it. I mean, when you went to America, did people come up to you and go, "Oh my God, you're so amazing," or something like that? What was your experience of Broadway?
One of them once called me Maestra, and I couldn't keep a straight face. That was it felt very American. They did. They loved it, and they loved it in a different way. And I think it sounds ridiculous to say, because we were a British theatre company doing a play about New York, but we were also doing a play about immigrants and about people arriving in New York. And I think that people who live in New York feel like it's their story. And that it very much is a story that belongs to that city. And so I think that it felt special to us to be there, and I think it felt special for audience members to see it in New York. They do a lot more clapping, which I love. Less polite. Clap on entrances, love that. put in a few extra breaks because they always clapped Simon on his entrance, which was lovely and to act to. Yes, I think because it's a story about New York and about the dream of New York, it does feel special to people who live there and people who love that city.
Because it's a big contract. I mean, because you actually kick off the show. You in any ways play the first note. I think it's but what was the note that you start on? Was it like a low D or something?
Low A.
Low A. Okay, nearly there. So you start on literally. You're the one. You press that keyboard and you go, and we're live. And there's the show. You kick everything off. Was it in New York? Did you press that key? Then you started your first kind of, was it crescendo up the piano? Yeah. And they all just went, wow.
Sometimes. I think I can't remember whether it was shockingly loud, but they did enjoy it. They enjoyed it starting, they enjoyed it finishing, they enjoyed everything in between mostly. And that's, it was lovely. So it's a very special experience for me to be able to open that show in New York. Felt really, really great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think one thing about the show is that it talks about the American dream. I think at the core of it is the American dream. You've got Henry Lehman comes from Grimbard, Bavaria, arrives at Ellis Island with basically a good luck from the security guard going, okay, good luck. There's America. Go do something. And, it's a huge commentary on the American dream, who, if anyone doesn't know what it is, it's basically if you work hard, you do everything you can, you will achieve your dreams, but you've got to put the work in. And, that's kind of like a loose abbreviation of it anyway. But it's a really big commentary on if you come from nothing and you build something, then you can become something in a way you can be successful. And I'm just curious, I got this image of, because I've spoken to a few musical people before, and I imagine so you got Nick who's panicking on the phone, like, Candida, help me. and then you come in and then you go, okay, so we've got the Lehman Brothers, we've got 163 years of history. We need some music that fits with this piece. Go. And it's like, how did you, was it kind of like...
Nick was very much, it was he was the driving force in terms of where that music came from. But I hope that I'm right in saying that for him it also was a very organic process. And that actually in a way it was a beautiful thing that it felt like he had to start again, because there had been a change of direction, because that music was then made in the room. He didn't have a chance to go away and do 6 weeks of prep before coming in. It could be something that organically grew out of what the actors were doing and what Sam was asking for. And me and Nick have worked together a lot, and we work together really well. It's just a really glorious working relationship. And it was just a really fun room in terms of him making stuff and me taking it from his brain onto the piano, and finding those moments. And it was kind of just lovely to see it being made fresh. Of course. So although I think it was terrifying, and I'm sure it was very terrifying for him, actually once we got kind of into the rehearsal process, I think it became less terrifying and more kind of collaborative in terms of every department working together. I hope he would think that was a fair explanation of how it was.
Oh, more than fair. You mentioned that one of your favorite parts of the show was the card player, when you played that, and it's a beautiful moment when Simon, who's playing Philip, I think it is, and he's building the business, and he's literally going to and from the stage between two imaginary card players doing this, and he's going, the winning card's that one, and he wins. chance? No, strategy. And he just goes into the next one. And it's,
You've got that down. Well done.
oh, thank you. But it's got a very kind of vaudevillian aspect to it, that
Yeah,
scene, especially. And you mentioned in an interview that the music kind of responds to how Philip grew the business. Again, going back to that word interaction in a way.
yeah.
And yeah, so would you say that that was your favorite part, the favorite
I
bit to
just
play?
really enjoyed that bit. I really enjoyed the fact that there was kind of different motifs that were representative of different parts of his journey. So it was kind of him working out how he was going to build things, and each time there would be kind of a building motif, and then a new arrival, and a little bit of kind of thinking music, and a little bit of building music, and a little bit of kind of vaudevillian, thinking and moving on music, and the way that all those pieces slotted together kind of is very kind of representative of the way that the music is built for all the scenes. It kind of moves between different ideas and processes in order to achieve a goal.
Mm,
And that particular scene, lots of different ideas happen really fast,
mm.
and happen in kind of quick succession, and it's a fun play.
Yeah. Again, it's all about how the music sort of embellished it. Well, no, embellished is the wrong word. Embedded itself into this piece. So it's like a huge grand act of storytelling on an epic scale. And of course, you've been involved with like so many kind of other like the theatrical stuff. Like I said in the intro, the Orange Tree Theatre, the Old Vic, the Duke of York's, and everything. But in terms of was this? Am I right in thinking this was like was very, very different to some of the stuff you maybe done before, that you were just sat on a piano like conducting the whole piece before? Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, yeah, I think that's very fair. It's definitely unusual
Mm,
and special in that respect. I think because it doesn't have a live band, it just has a live pianist, and it's just you out there. You're very exposed. You're very reliant on yourself. There's no one to fall back on, and but you do have the actors. You are in it together, and you
yeah,
definitely feel that. You definitely feel that kind of liveness of it. But
hugely.
yes, absolutely. I hadn't done anything that was just solo piano and actors before.
Yeah. I,
Um,
again,
so yeah,
it's all going back to that first night or that first preview, just looking at each other like, it'll be fine. It's gonna be okay.
we'll get
It'll be
through it.
okay.
We'll do it. Yeah. But I
No,
think the fact that we'd all been involved in the process, and that we'd had this glorious rehearsal period, I think made that easier,
yeah,
because we kind of knew. I knew that even if I didn't play exactly what I'd decided, I knew why I was playing it, and therefore something would come out that would do the make the purpose, and I would get it right the next
yeah,
time, hopefully.
and
But
yeah,
it was all good. It was all good. We got
yeah.
through
Of
it.
course, of
It was
course it was.
a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Was there ever because yeah, and we talked only about how things were chopping and changing all the time, but was there ever a bit of music which you thought, oh, this is I really want to make this in, but sadly was edited out?
Oh, great question. There must have been. There's a piece of music that happens when the Lehmans reach the digital age,
Mm,
and that uh, that piece there was very much, and it was much longer, and it was kind of a much bigger deal in an earlier version. I missed that. That was lovely, but I understand why it wasn't there. I
uh,
feel like there was a bit of music in the ping pong scene, but I can't remember how it goes. I feel like there was another bit of music there that I was sad to see go.
yeah.
Um, there were definitely bits that I would have been sad, but now it feels like the score could never have been anything but what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's yeah, I suppose like yeah, if you look back now, it's really got a really good thing on it now. But yeah, Yeah, I just, as they say in theatre, as they say, kill your darlings or something in theatre, don't they?
Kill your children, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's even darker than that.
Yeah, I'll stick with darlings, it's a bit more lighter. But yeah, I just imagine like you just sitting there thinking, oh, this is going to be really great. And then Sam comes along and goes, "Look, it's lovely, but no." And you're like,
Yeah,
okay.
and it's hard at the time. It's hard at the time, but the thing about Sam is he's usually right.
Oh, yeah, of
And you
course.
see it.
Yeah.
You see it afterwards. You're like, I mean, I was sad to lose it. I was sad to let it go, but but it was the right choice for the piece, and you get over it somehow.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And just a very quick aside, what's he like, Sam Mendes, to work with? Because I hear very, very good things.
He's always been an absolute delight
Yeah.
for me. I've had a great time working with him. I've just been working on The Hills of California with him
Oh,
and
yes, of course. Yeah.
and that has also been a really, really lovely experience.
Yeah, that was at the Pinter, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah. Oh, it's a brilliant show. I hear good things about that as well. Um, Candida, I could talk to you for ages. I know we are very pushed for time, I know, but so this Lehman trilogy, this is to be continued. We still have so much more left to discuss, so many more questions. But unfortunately, we'll have to sort of round it up there, I think. But very quickly, just before you shoot off, I know you're on your lunch break and everything. You've got to shoot back to rehearsals now. So I've just got two final questions. Well, actually, no, three. Sorry. So the first one is: so how would you sort of sum up your journey? Because I'm sure your journey with the Lehman trilogy might even continue. You might be asked to do it again in the future. But how would you describe your journey with this piece from day one of rehearsals to today?
Day one, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what we were going to make. I didn't know how much playing there would be, or anything about it. And I went in because I love working with Nick, and I thought the piece sounded amazing. And that grew to this beautiful show that we made together, and this beautiful show that was made for Simon and Ben and Adam and me. And since then, we all kind of left performing the show. Ben left a little bit earlier, but the rest of us left at the same time. We've had new casts come in and new pianists, and now I manage that, and I manage the department, and I show the new pianists how the show works and explain to them, you know, how you kind of manage it. And it's been, and we've had a wonderful group of British and American pianists play the show now, and it's a joy to hear it being interpreted differently, because every pianist plays the show in a slightly different way. And the really lovely thing for everyone involved in the show from the beginning has been to see how robust it is as a piece, and how it's brilliant with different actors and a different pianist who make it different, but it's no worse. It doesn't lose anything. It just is a kind of slightly different spin on it. And that has been lovely and continues to be lovely. We've got lovely Rebecca and Anissa playing the show in San Francisco at the moment, and they are very different to each other, and both brilliant, and bring something new and fresh to the role. And it's lovely watching both of them do it. And there are things that I might say, can you come in a bit faster on this, or can you respond a bit more like this, because that has felt important to the piece as a whole. But there are lots of things where it's like, oh, that's different to the way I did it, but I love it, I like it, that's great. And that's been a lovely process and continues to be lovely.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've got the final two questions for today. First of all, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and in your lunch hour as well. I really appreciate that. So final two questions for today is, what would you say was a bit of advice you wish you heard when you were starting out?
I wish that people kept telling me when I started out that you would make a career and not to worry about it, which I think is fair and true. What they don't tell you is that you find you find your people. You find the people who work in a similar way to you and have similar values in terms of the artistic work you create and the way in which you create it, and that you might try working with some people, and if it doesn't feel good to you, then it probably doesn't feel good to them either, and that's fine. And you find your group that make theatre and make music with the same sense of joy as you have. That doesn't mean that it's any less than. It's just it could be different to someone else's, and that's wonderful. But you find your people, and then you keep getting work, because in the same way as you want to work with those people, they want to work with you. And that's the kind of glorious thing about having worked in the industry for a while now, and there are always more people to work with, and there are always more people, and that pool just becomes bigger and bigger as you find more and more people who you just love working with. And it's a really good thing to keep working with new people and finding new ways to work. And there's always something to learn from a job, even if you haven't felt it's your best. There's something to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. The power of music, the power of art.
Power of music. Yeah.
Connects all of us together. What a business. And finally today, what's been an experience or experiences you've had in your career up to this point that you're never, ever going to forget?
I mean, the opening night of Lehman on Broadway, that's it. And going to the Tony Awards for Lehman.
Oh, really?
Those could be once in a lifetime experiences. And if they are, I'd still be very happy, because we take The Hills of California to Broadway in the autumn, and that will be a wonderful experience. But it won't be me playing it. It'll be an actor playing, and to perform on Broadway is something that I will always hold in my heart as a thing that I did and loved.
Was it just like a different energy that night? What was it like?
It was a bit of a different energy, but I think it's also like it's little Candida's dream. It's
We're on Broadway.
It's a thing I never imagined I'd do.
Yeah.
And sitting at the Tony Awards, the producers just laughed at me because I had this huge smile, because I was just the happiest person in the room. I was just like, this is great. What an experience. What a lovely time. What an honor to be there with all my friends, having a lovely time.
Bless your heart. Honestly, that sounds just amazing. Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, I've still got so many more things I'd love to ask you, but I know you've got to shoot off. But first of all, thank you so much, Candida. This has been absolutely incredible. We need to get another episode in. I've still got many questions about the mechanics of music, how you learn it, playing the piano, because playing the piano is on my bucket list, actually. I'd love to be able to play it, but unfortunately not right now. But who knows, one day.
It's never too late.
Never too late. No, never too late. Anyway, so we will hold all those questions back. We'd love to have you back, Candida. We've got so many more things left to do and discuss. But I say thank you for today. If you just hang on, I'll finish the recording. We'll have a little debrief afterwards. Cool. So guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Uncensored Critic Podcast, and I'll be back very, very soon. And this conversation will continue. I've got so many more things left to do. Anyway, but in the meantime, Candida, thank you so much.
Thank you.